when your arguments are framed around what space wizards can and cannot do based on the previous Space Wizards movies, in a movie very deliberately framed around the painful but ultimately positive act of letting go of the past, and specifically the rigid restrictions of what you think the Force is. I don't want to get all political cartoon about it, but mister, when that's your angle, you have just tumbled ass over dick off a bridge labelled The Point and straight down into a nest of Gundarks and Bantha shit. Your arguments are the bleated cries of a Gomorian guard being devoured by the rancor of progress, and when you squeal them over the internet, we all picture General Hux. When those guys decry Star Wars for going all liberal, we wonder what films you were watching, while we were enjoying seeing space Nazis get their laser moons blown up by a bunch of gleep-glop aliens that they would have happily rounded up into camps. We wonder if you've been aware of Mark Hamill railing against conservative politics on Twitter. Your boy Luke Skywalker likes to defend oppressed minorities in real life too. When you complain about women suddenly growing too big for their boots, we think back to a 19-year-old Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia insulting Peter Cushing and his Gestapo mate with the breathing issues right to their faces. We wonder how strong and inspiring she had to be, and how rude to Han Solo she was, until he himself stopped being quite so much of an asshole. It wasn't that he charmed her into a dutiful sandwich maker, he was just trying to be a better man, and she recognized that. But these guys did not. When fan theories stretch from the predictable and sensible, Rey being a secret Skywalker or a Kenobi, to Luke being Snoke all the way up to Jar Jar Binks being the real Sith Lord behind it all, when ideas that ludicrous are clung to with religious fervour that will brook no contradiction nor self-awareness, those fan theories and the people who spout them become unbalanced, and it is no longer important nor healthy to cite them in the interests of a balanced review, which this isn't, and we've rarely laid claim to that spurious quality anyway. For all those scared little men who were intimidated by Rey in The Force Awakens, Johnson and the company have sour news for you fellows, and it's in the shape of women. 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 All over the screen. They tell men what to do, they get their own way, they express emotion and compassion, and that is portrayed as a strength. They exhibit strategy and determination. They make mistakes, and they're right. And they're good women, and they're bad women, and they're women of colour, and they're the most important women in the galaxy, and they're nobodies. This is what so many switched-on people have been waiting for, in Star Wars in particular, with its history of one single woman surrounded by an ocean of men, all of whom got action figures, and her being super important in the first film, and then gradually fading to a strong support role. And then in the second trilogy, a walking womb who possessed few actual human characteristics. Then again, nobody did. Now, if the tone and representation of Last Jedi continues, that one woman from the first film is being joined by a legion, all of whom better damn well have action figures. And notably, none of them are wearing gold bikinis. I don't need to explain to you, my dear, clever audience, why this concept scares the boy men so very much. From the moment Luke reacts to being handed his lightsaber back, this sacred relic with a documented past, one which proved an essential artifact in the Thrawn trilogy, which constituted the best thing fans could get in the early 90s for a follow-up to the original 3 films. From the moment Luke tosses this cursed, child-slaying blade aside like Alec Guinness cruelly discarding an autograph book from a bright-eyed Star Wars-loving boy, from that moment, The Last Jedi was making a clear, forward statement that threads through the whole production in a gloriously contradictory fashion. Get used to disappointment. Luke isn't the great warrior. Rey's parents were nobody. Snoke dies suddenly and unexpectedly without us knowing shit about him. Same for Phasma. Rey isn't a Jedi or a self-declared Grey Force user. Finn and Poe don't kiss. There is somehow another Death Star, albeit a miniaturized one. Benicio del Toro's annoying, overacted, treacherous thief gets away with a huge crate of money and no punishment. Luke dies, just as some fans stinging from the loss of Han declared he should never do in this film, or they would riot. The holiest teachings of the Jedi were burned up by a drunken Yoda kicking his heels with glee. Love that bit. And Ben Solo most definitely does not redeem himself. Yet. This affected me too. I came out smiling, but with nagging doubts. Because I love The Force Awakens so much, it's still my favourite for so many reasons, and one of which was that it opened up a brand new playing field with all these amazing, lovable, hateable, pitiable, curiosity-piquing new characters. Just like the original Star Wars, it made the statement that the universe was the limit for these guys. Anything could happen. And now some incredibly significant things have happened, and they cancel out a bunch of other things that could have happened, meaning that their paths are now more firmly set. I realise I was mourning for a story that could have been, and I've been mourning the impossibility of a trilogy which gives us a strong central importance to first Han, and then Luke, and then Leia, since the end of that rotten 2016 when Carrie Fisher blew out into space and flew away from us. Had they known when she was going, we all know they would have done things differently, but that wasn't what they got, and it wasn't what we got, and quite frankly, Carrie would drawl that it wasn't what she expected either. I was disappointed. A little. But that somehow works as part of its charm. The Last Jedi doesn't just want you as a viewer to be able to accept disappointment and carry on, but to learn from it, to self-examine, to question your desires, seek out the petty feelings, laugh at the frailty and pomposity inside yourself, pulling a Yoda on us, masking deep wisdom beneath a frequently foolish frame. When the little guy himself turns up and tells us failure is the greatest teacher, these are not idle words. We cannot make life go the way we want it to, and being able to bounce back from disappointment, failure and mistakes, forgiving ourselves and others, is a vital part of true growth, both for us as viewers and for the Star Wars series itself. To that end, it has, with subtlety missed by the detractors of The Force Awakens, labelling it just a New Hope ripoff, slid all 3 original movies into the space of just 2, and a bit. Rey had her confrontation with Ren at the end of Awakens. That was the Cloud City moment when he asked her to join him. We didn't get the cheerful, victorious medal ceremony from the end of A New Hope. We got a sobering anxiety about one of our heroes being out of action and another being gone forever. This wasn't just Ben Kenobi who'd been on screen for 35 minutes. This was Han Solo who'd been on screen for 4 films. And now he was gone forever. Or at least until he returns as a young man. We never really go. And we got a massive question mark set to the Force theme. We got the body of A New Hope, but the journey of Empire. And then with The Last Jedi, we got the body of Empire, but with the journey of Return, spun and twisted until it had a completely different outcome. Vader didn't die when he killed his Emperor to save Luke this time, and crucially, he did it for conflicted and rather selfish reasons, so he's nowhere near redeemed yet, leaving us again with a massive question mark as the rebels celebrate not a victory, but a hairline escape at appalling cost of life. The established story pattern has now played out, and anything could happen in the follow-up. Repetition and rhyme with the original trilogy are almost entirely assured in some capacity. But with what Last Jedi achieved, Lucasfilm would be insane not to ride this wave of new Star Wars. When you see boy fans starting petitions online to get Episode 8 struck from canon, far from feeling like they have to cater more to their needs, Disney sees them as a dangerously irrational, unpredictable and toxic element of the audience. A sliver of grey on a pie chart. A minority with no understanding or concession to what best suits the majority. An unavoidable anomaly that has to be ignored in order to proceed. But as for Disney, with Force Awakens they summoned up the ghosts of the past and delivered the children of today. With Last Jedi, they challenged some of the most fundamental aspects of what we know of safe, comfortable Star Wars. Not in a hugely destructive way, but in a searching, cut-the-crap kind of midnight decision way. This leaves the future to be reshaped into something new which could not happen without this soul-searching and self-analysis. Just as Han had mellowed, aged and matured as we see him in The Force Awakens, while still feeling every bit true to his character, Luke and Leia are the same people, weathered by age, experience, disappointment and failure. It was truly wonderful to see them reunited on screen to the strains of that underappreciated theme from Return of the Jedi. This is, to many intents and purposes, Luke's movie. It's certainly Hamill's crowning performance. He represents the old, the wise and the cranky, and these new kids represent the ones who are going to carry this forwards. I love how, unlike Battlefront, the First Order are not treated with reverence and towering awesome empowerment. They are nasty, mean-spirited, anxiety-ridden, pompous, bickering children, scattered with old men who were a bit too young for the last war and are now going to bloody well drive a Star Destroyer. The kind of shitheads who like to think about the spoils of war and the acts of war, but not the consequences of war. I love seeing them humiliated. But it's that last shot and Rose Tico that I want to build this piece on, because Rose came out of nowhere and brought with her what should have been here from the beginning, and actually was, but got muddled up in all the sequel, prequel nonsense, and especially recently in all the fanboy gatekeeping bullshit. Ask yourself, in a world of Trekkies and Trekkers, browncoats, Tolkies, Ringers, and Whovians, what is a dedicated Star Wars fan called? A Warsian? A Jedi head? A Star Wars bore? We'll come back to this. You see, Rose signifies a nobody who works behind pipes. She's not special, she's not a white male, so she's not a template. She goes out of her way to express frustration and fury at an opulent upper class profiteering from chaos and opposition. She stands for peace and love, and she acts unselfishly throughout, effecting change in small ways. She's not dressed sexily. She won't back down, and she won't be quiet, and she won't be stopped by fear, and she won't put up with hate. She is, in short, the alt-right's worst nightmare. And she's one of my new favourite heroes, and I dare say a lot of ours too, likely to be hated by some more than Finn, who ranks around the Jar Jar levels with a subset of fans. Rose is trouble to a lot of people, so is Rey with her nothing background. And here is something that nobody wants to say about Star Wars, but I'm going to say it because you can know about a movie's troubling influence while still adoring the movie. This all started with The Empire Strikes Back. In Star Wars, Luke is a farm boy. Anakin Skywalker, his father, was just a good Jedi, important only to Obi-Wan and to Luke. That lasted up until the end of Empire, when the reveal changed that to Luke's father being the most important person in the galaxy. Technically, the Emperor is more important, but not to us. Vader was the big kahuna. We barely knew the Emperor at this point, and when he appeared in Jedi, Vader literally threw him aside. Luke's lineage suddenly became of drastic importance to us, and that informed upon all of the best drama of Return of the Jedi, including Leia's conflict on discovering her connection. Using Luke as our avatar, we went from feeling, wow, imagine if we could avenge our absent father's killer, to, oh my god, my real father represents pure evil. Then with the prequels, George doubled down on the import and made Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader a prophesized chosen one, brought into being with the divine powers of the midi-chlorians. He turned Palpatine's attack dog, his Jedi hunter, into a dark messiah. This evokes a lot of very ancient cultural fixation on lineage, the use of special blood making a hero, the son of kings, important because of who he came from, not of who he is becoming. So naturally, when Rey appeared, it became a great J.J. Abrams mystery box as to who she came from, which matched and often eclipsed the interest in where she was going. So finding out that she came from nobody in particular is a big deal. It disappoints her and us, and we all have to move forward and examine the person she is now and who she will be. Star Wars now is not the same as Star Wars then. If anything, it's taking its dramatic and emotional beats from the Star Wars of the new generation, which emerged in the 2000s, around about the time Lucas was busy burning his house down. Harry Potter. Harry's parents were special to him, and the people who cared about them, by extension, care about Harry. But he's not the chosen one because he's the heir of Godric Gryffindor. No, it's Tom who obsesses about his lineage, Tom who obsesses about prophecies, Tom who obsesses about special blood. He's the heir of Salazar Slytherin. He was abandoned and betrayed, and to Tom, that gives him the right to be terrible to everyone. In this case, and in the case of Ben Solo, the writers are using special blood as something that unfortunate individuals use to define themselves in cruel and destructive ways. And they even told us at the very beginning, in the third trailer, the first one you ever got to hear Rey speak, Maz, I can only assume it's Maz because we never saw this in the film, asks who she is, and she says, clear as day, only 2 words. I'm no one. This is my favourite trailer of all time for many, many reasons, but chiefly because it sets the whole new saga up and indicates their new direction from the out in a massively emotional and exciting manner. Finn has no roots and wants something to fight for. Kylo lives in the shadow of Vader, and his story will be about escaping it. In Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, he introduces Aragorn, son of Arathorn, a king, ready to ascend with a very serious job to do. But in both the film and the book, Aragorn is not the true hero, and once he's in his place, he kind of fades into the background. And neither is Frodo, the boy appointed by his uncle to carry his burden. No, the true hero was always Samwise Gamgee, the gardener. The little hobbit with no responsibilities beyond trimming the verge. He has determination that gets him through the very worst of situations where the strongest of men would crumble. He makes a difference, and he never gives up on his friend or his home. He fights to save the things he loves, not to destroy the things he hates. And that's Rose, a woman, coincidentally or not, named for the woman Sam married. We can't control whether we are of special blood or not, but we can control our not giving up. These characters are us in this wide, terrifying, thrilling, epic saga. It's too big to be just about one man or woman with divine providence and special blood and destiny. It has to be people who can come from anywhere. And that final shot, a boy, a stable boy, a nobody, a young wart from The Sword and the Stone with a broom, whether it's a tacit approval of Star Wars kid or not. Remember him, the young lad who fooled around with a stick like it was a lightsaber and was laughed at by thousands? He's us. His abandon is the reason so many people laugh. We remember goofing around with a pretend lightsaber battling stormtroopers in our back garden, and whether we laughed at him cruelly for being such a loser, too old and somehow too fat to still be doing that. And we don't understand where the tension in our laughter comes from, or whether we laughed at him in embarrassed recognition of our own desire to pretend to be Darth Maul, right there in 2002. Whether we like it or not, that foolish playing boy is us. Because Star Wars is us. That's why there's no such thing as a Star Wars fan name. Star Wars is for everyone, and it was from the beginning, and it should continue to be. That was the secret of the 1977 original, exercising its hero's journey with beautiful simplicity and tapping into the monomyth that has abided just as long as Special Blood. Star Wars was about everyone. Empire and Jedi made it about Luke and Vader. The prequels made it about Anakin. The Force Awakens made it about Star Wars. Rogue One was a war in the stars, and The Last Jedi finally brought it home to be about everyone again. Not you personally, everyone. Hey there, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. The audio version of this one kicked off our roundtable podcast on The Last Jedi, and we've got hundreds of movie analysis shows in our archive. If you love the work we do, School of Movies has a Patreon and could always use a hand paying the bills. That also gets you access to all manner of goodies. And hey, share this particular video around. It feels like people need it right now.